Greetings, everyone. Once again, welcome to my YouTube channel. If you are new to this channel, I'm Advocate Pule Matsilo, and in this channel, we teach South African law and we also share pearls of wisdom in line with the Word of God. Today, I'm going to talk about Section 9 of the South African Constitution, 1996. It's a 1996 Constitution. This Section 9, it's in my view the backbone of our Constitution. It is called the Equality Clause. And in terms of this section, everyone is equal before the law. But I will further unpack what do we mean, how do we mean when we say everyone or all people are equal before the law. But remember that there is a background to the South African Constitution. And that is why, in my view, this is one of the key sections of the South African Constitution. Having said that, please note that in terms of Section 2 of the South African Constitution of 1996, this very Constitution is the supreme law of the country. In other words, is the number one law, is the most important law in the country. Because, reason being, there are other laws in South Africa, but this one is the main, is supreme, even in terms of its Section 2. Any other law in terms of this section must be aligned to the Constitution. So if you have a law which is contrary to the principles that are enshrined, that are contained in the Constitution, such law would be declared invalid, or that section in that particular law, if it contradicts what the Constitution say, if it's not in line with the Constitution, then such law or such particular section of that law will be declared invalid. And that law, if it does not align with the Constitution, if it's in conflict with the Constitution, it would be declared null and void. That's how important our Constitution is. And it has been lauded as one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. I think we were lucky as a country that our democracy, our independence as a country, we acquired it very late, especially in Africa. And that has given us an advantage in the sense that we were able to learn, even to adopt and adapt from other foreign developed jurisdictions or countries like Canada. We looked at Germany, we looked at India. Those are some of the progressive states, countries, jurisdictions that we learned from, that we adopted and we adapted. Because it is very important that, when you adopt, especially as an African state, that you adapt to your conditions. It's not everything American, Western that will suit our unique circumstances, even our history as a country. Talking about the history, remember that South Africa used to be an apartheid state where people were not equal. People were judged. People were allocated or given rights based on the color of their skin. Or in a nutshell, should I say, people were not treated as equal. So that is why now it is very imperative that we started by saying everyone is equal before the law. And we moved from there. Now, In our section 9, this equality clause that I've just mentioned, the section 1 thereof talked about the fact that everyone is equal. And it doesn't end there. It continues to say in subsection 3 that the state may not unfairly discriminate directly or indirectly. Now, there's a critical word there, unfairly. What does unfairly mean? Is there fair discrimination? And let me hasten to say yes. In terms of South African law, based on where we come from, there will be discrimination that is regarded as fair. An example is where we purposely and consciously take a decision that this post, as an example, was occupied by a woman. And when this woman retires or when she resigns, the post must always be filled by another woman. So we develop a law or a policy to that effect, and it becomes a conscious decision. Because why? We don't want to regress. Seeing that women never occupied powerful position. So we don't want to take 3 steps back by appointing a man to this position. So another one can be that one of race, to say, for now, we have in this company 80% white and 20% black in senior positions. So we need to balance the scale. And how do we balance the scale? We balance the scale by saying whenever there is an opening, it is going to be filled by a person of color. Because why? There is somewhere where we want to go. We want to end up with a situation whereby there is 50-50 or even 60-40 or 70-30, depending on the demographics of the country, of the province. Because if you remember very well, people of color are in the majority in South Africa. So how come you have 80% of whites in those positions when the demographics say something else? So it is fair discrimination in the sense that there's a decision that has been taken consciously that we will fill these positions with people of color. And that is what we call affirmative action. And why we're taking that decision is because we are trying to use this affirmative action policy to correct the wrongs of the past. But we are not trying to discriminate. And it also says the state may not discriminate directly or indirectly. You know, there are instances where a discrimination can be done indirectly. For example, if you advertise a post and you say this post will be occupied by, or the requirements of the post states that a person must be Zulu speaking, Xhosa speaking, obviously it means that there are some people that you are locking outside. Because it's not everybody who can speak Xhosa. It's not everybody who can speak Zulu. It's not everybody who can speak Afrikaans. So once you put that in your advert as a requirement for the post, you are clearly locking some people out and thus indirectly discriminating them. Now, in subsection 3 of this, the very section 9 that I'm talking about, there's what we call listed grounds of discrimination. So in other words, the state, bear in mind here we're talking about the state. The state or the authority cannot discriminate a person based on the following grounds. And of course, I have illustrated that there will be an exception to the rule, because every general principle, every rule has an exception. And an exception, I've stated already, that it's when an affirmative action is being implemented, in the sense that it may seem as if, yes, it is discrimination, but it is fair discrimination. So there is fair discrimination, there is unfair discrimination. So now, with this listed grounds, we're talking about you cannot unfairly discriminate a person based on the following grounds. One, race. You cannot discriminate a person because he belongs to a certain race. My example will be mainly on the issue of a job, but it relates to any other area. You cannot say, this building will only be occupied by people of a certain color. Or when you advertise, you say only Black people must apply, unless if the intention is to satisfy the policy that I spoke about, and which will not necessarily be in conflict with the Constitution. So you cannot also discriminate based on gender, based on sex. You cannot say, no, it's only police men allowed in this country. Women can also be police. Women can also be lawyers. Women can also be doctors. By the way, growing up, we were told that lawyering it's only for men. It's a very difficult job. I remember my cousin, when I went to register as a first year student. It was that year where he was graduating. And he said to me, Kazi, are you sure? Are you sure that you want to study law? This profession is not for women. You can imagine somebody who's about to graduate advising you like that this profession is not for women. But he's just about to graduate. He was there for 3 years to do his BUris, which is a junior degree in law at that time. And he's advising you not to study because it's not for men. We grew up knowing, even in my class, there were few girls who studied law. We grew up knowing that engineering, medicine, those are fields for women. But now, in terms of the Constitution of South Africa, women can do anything we know now that men can do. They have the same brains, and they can even excel more than men when it comes to certain roles. So yes, you cannot say, no, this job is just for men. It can be for men, it can be for women. You cannot discriminate based on pregnancy. Like somebody comes to apply for a job and then you realize that, this person is pregnant. No, this person can get a job because this person must be allowed to go on a maternity leave. The environment, the employer, the employers must be socially contextualized in the sense that they should make the environment friendly, even to pregnant women, even to mothers. Because, as a woman, you have to be pregnant, you still have to go to work, you still have to take care of women. So the environment must not be hostile towards women to say, no, because you're pregnant, you're not getting this job. In South Africa, the Constitution say that is unconstitutional, and you can challenge that decision. You cannot be discriminated based on marital status. You are single, you're married, you're divorced. You're entitled to the same rights. You are entitled to that job. The fact that you are married, the fact that you are divorced, the fact that you are single has got nothing to do with it. You cannot be discriminated based on your ethnicity or your social origin. You are an outsider. You are a foreigner. No. Of course, all states, they take care of their citizens. But there are instances where even somebody of a different social origin can get a job, because in every country, or let me speak about South Africa, there are instances where there are jobs, which they call it scarce skills. It's even listed somewhere in the website, maybe of Home Affairs Department, where you can actually relocate to South Africa, look for a job in South Africa, because it's a scarce skill. We don't have enough people to do that job. It's a scarce skill in our country. It's listed there. So you cannot be discriminated because of your social origin. You cannot be discriminated based on your ethnicity, which has been a very, very serious problem in Africa. The tribe that you belong to. You cannot be denied a job because you are not Tswana. I am Tswana myself. But I cannot say, no, this is for Tswanas only. That is discrimination. And that is unconstitutional. The law does not allow it. You hire people because they are people because of merits. People should be appointed on merits, not because they belong to a certain ethnic group. But we know that in Africa, generally, I'm sorry to say, this is very prevalent. You'll see when the president is a particular ethnic group, people from that particular ethnic group, they begin to mushroom and occupy positions. And those that do not belong to that particular ethnic group, they are sidelined and they begin to look for jobs in other spaces, maybe in business or in the public sector. Not public sector, rather, in the private sector. But the public sector will be for the tribe of the president. We've seen in other African states where people killed each other because of ethnicity. This is unconstitutional. A person cannot be discriminated based on the ethnic group or the social origin. The other factor is that of color. You cannot be discriminated. A person cannot be discriminated based on color. You are black, you are white, you are colored, you are Indian. Oh, by the way, going back to the issue of color and race, in South Africa, in the old South Africa, people were divided into 4 groups. It was white at the top, Indian number 2, coloreds, and then Africans, in that order. Even the salaries, even the benefits, they were received in that order. People were treated based on that order. Now, this constitution has erased that. You get a job, you get an opportunity, you access government services, not based on your ethnicity, not based on your color, not based on your race. This takes me to the next ground, social orientation. You cannot be discriminated based on your social orientation. We cannot say, no, this one cannot get a job because it's gay, because it's lesbo or whatever, lesbian. No, people are people, regardless of their consciences, regardless of their beliefs, because that's another factor. You cannot be discriminated because of your conscience, because of what you believe in. You can also not be discriminated based on your religion. If you're a Muslim, if you're a Christian, if you're a Hindu, if you're a traditional, African traditional religion, you cannot be discriminated because of your religion, because that's what you believe in, that's what your conscience dictates to you. That is why even when you go to a court of law, there are some people whose faith does not permit for them to take an oath. So they are given an option of taking an affirmation. So instead of taking an oath, wherever oaths are taken, whether it's in court, whether it's when you attest to an affirmation, instead of taking an oath, you can take an affirmation. This is an illustration that the government or the law in South Africa does make provision for people's different consciences, beliefs, even religion. And this takes me to the issue of culture. Recently in South Africa, now this one I'll talk about it because it's not in a court of law. It's something that was in the media, even in the social media, where a child was told to go back home because he had dreadlocks. I mean, this is how we wear hair as African people. How can somebody be made uncomfortable rather, by the fact that a child came to school with dreadlocks? This is how African people wear their hair. So this is something that should not be used against them because it is their culture. That is why we have Culture Day. That is why we have to be tolerant of each other and celebrate each other's cultures, celebrate our differences rather, because the fact that we are different makes us beautiful. That is why in South Africa we call ourselves a rainbow nation, because we are a nation of many colors, different ethnicities, different races, different beliefs, different cultures. And if we learn to be tolerant and get to understand and to learn about each other's cultures and tolerate each other's culture, not just move from the assumption that somebody's culture is stupid. It's not stupid, it's because you don't understand that culture. And if you begin to understand it, you'll begin to realize that this is beautiful. Even the language is another ground upon which you cannot discriminate a person. That is why even in our courts, there is provision for interpretation. Because just imagine if this particular person will be forced to go through the court process in the language that they do not understand. That will be travesty of justice. That is why even if the person is French speaking, the Department of Justice makes sure that they get an interpreter from wherever who can come and interpret the proceedings and even assist the person to communicate in their language of choice. Because why? We are aware that we cannot talk of legal representation, which is also one of the constitutional imperatives in South Africa. So we cannot talk about this very important right, which is also enshrined in the Constitution, as somebody having the right to legal representation if they cannot speak or be spoken to in their language of choice, in the language that they understand, in the language that they feel comfortable to communicate with. And then finally, a person cannot be discriminated based on birth, where they are born. Person cannot be discriminated based on that. Oh, I know that I said finally, but it was not finally. There's another one. A person cannot be discriminated based on disability. Disabled people are people. And we have to make our environment to accommodate them. That is why even when you go to public toilets, there are toilets for people who are disabled, for them to be able to ride in with their wheelchairs. In the workplace, even the stairs, even the lifts, rather not the stairs, because they cannot use the stairs. The lifts must be accommodating of their wheelchairs. If it's somebody in the workplace who is blind, the state or the employer must make it sure that this person has the necessary equipments that will assist that will assist this particular person to function maximally based on their disability. Because, yes, I know that there are people who even say, actually, we should not even call it disability. They are just physically challenged. It's not that they are disabled. They can still use their brains, they can still function. This person has degrees, even if she doesn't have degrees, whatever that they can do, they can do. But they just need extra support, additional equipment for them to be able to function in their respective careers. I thank you. I hope you followed what I said, but I know you did. Thank you very much. That is South African law for you. I thank you for joining me. God bless you.